Brief little agenda for today. We'll go through an introduction of what the Emerging Professional Planners Group is. Then we'll introduce the panelists and we'll have some time for a Q&A before we close on out. But let's we have some poll questions. So let's get those pulled up first. Just to Paul, could you please queue up the first poll question?
Sure, not a problem.
Actually, I've got it. So first question, we just want to try and get to know who everyone is. Are you a student? Are you an early career, mid-career, professional? Just so we can kind of get to know who we're talking with today. All right, so unsurprisingly, it looks like the majority of our respondents are early career professionals, though there are some mid-career, some students, and some looking to change careers. So as you can see, and our next poll question is just our own curiosity. What are you most interested in learning about today? We have our panelists are from a diverse range of backgrounds, and we cover each one of these public, private, and nonprofit sectors. So, depending on your answers, we'll try and highlight some relevant experience. Right? Sharing the results. So most people are interested in learning about private sector or public sector experience. So we've got a wealth of knowledge on that today. All three of our panelists at some point or another have touched on that. So we'll make sure to share that. And our final question, just how are you doing today? Good amount of answers all across the spectrum, but we are glad that, no matter what level your battery percentage is at today, you're making the time to join us. So thank you very much. So just a little introduction about the Emerging Professional Planners Group. It is led by myself. My name is Kevin Quinn once again. I am the village planner for the Village of LaGrange. I've been planning for just under about 2 years now. I graduated from planning school with my master's in December 2023. I've just been working since then. Shown here are some of the members of our professional emerging professional planners group, the EPP. It's a collection of early career professionals promoting social and professional development goals among other early career planning professionals. Further goals of the group include creating a strong network for individuals who are embarking on their urban planning career, entering the Illinois planning sphere, or exploring career transitions, pursuing studies, or have recently graduated. So we, want to cast a pretty wide net. This is for anyone who is emerging at any level, whether that's emerging into the state, emerging into the working world, or just looking to broaden their network. We try and put on a vast, wide amount of events. Previously, we put on happy hours across Chicagoland. We're also trying to branch more into doing professional development activities like today's webinar. And we also put on events at the state conference. In addition to myself, there are 5 other members of the EPP: David Schottky, Nicole Campbell, Sarahi Barcenas, Andy Vasquez, and Kennedy Cosby. So these are their headshots. Please look for us at future APA Illinois events to try and connect. And then from that, here are our panelists. So, brief introduction, Nicole Campbell, shown on the left. AICP is a planner two at Housel Levine. She has 5 years of experience in the public and private sector. With a rare passion for zoning, she helps communities modernize their zoning, sign, and subdivision regulations while protecting existing character. Sarahi Barcenas is an assistant planner for the Village of Carroll Stream, where she assists with municipal planning and zoning review. Through this role, she has gained hands-on experience applying local regulations to real-world projects. She graduated from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign with a degree in Earth, Society, and Environmental Sustainability, along with a minor in Urban Studies and Planning. She will be starting the Master's in Urban Planning, Urban Regional Planning and Policy program at the University of Illinois, Chicago this fall. Previously, she's interned as a GIS intern with the city of Naperville and as an engineering intern for the village of Huntley. These roles helped her build cross-departmental experience in local government. She's also a member of the Illinois Local Government Hispanic Network, where she participates in efforts to connect professionals with communities and advance programs that address issues affecting Hispanic and Latino populations. And our third panelist, shown on the right, Caitlyn Hillyard, is currently the Village of Roselle's planner, a position she's held since May 2025. She earned a master's degree in urban planning from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign in 2021 with a concentration in community development for social justice. Her master's research focused on how zoning changes enabled student housing development in Champaign and how that new housing in turn affected the rental housing market in the wider community. Before accepting her job in Roselle, she worked on AARP's Livable Communities team as a data and storytelling advisor. Planning is her second career. She has a bachelor's degree in broadcast journalism from American University and previously worked for C-SPAN and KFF Health News, also known as Kaiser Health News. In her free time, she enjoys playing in her local community orchestra, making pottery, and reading. So, with introductions out of the way, I want to open the floor up to our panelists where they will have a little bit of time to just share their planning story. Nicole, are you ready to start?
Let's do it. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Campbell. So, as Kevin mentioned, I have 5 years of planning experience, both in the public and private sector. I am really passionate about like rural and semi-rural communities, helping them manage growth in a way that protects their neighborhood character because every community is experiencing growth, and it's just how to do that in a sustainable way. I actually grew up in a semi-rural town in California where I first learned about planning when I was interning for my local community development department, but I wasn't convinced yet. I always say that people fall into planning. I mean, few people really like grow up wanting to be planners because most people don't even know about it. And that was true for me too. So I actually started out as a math major. And then after 2 years, I decided that math was too hard. And I was really drawn to like the interdisciplinary nature of planning. I mean, we do a little bit of everything. We wear many hats, like policy work, writing, speaking. Sometimes we play with engineering and architecture, and there's still a little bit of math. I haven't been able to get away from that. But after earning my bachelor's in political science, I did start out as a policy analyst for the state of Arizona House of Representatives. Then my first planning job was more of a permit runner for a small entitlement firm in my hometown. But I did learn a lot, like working with landscape architects, developers. I even did a little bit of drafting, and just kind of starting on that side was helpful as I transitioned to the public sector because I had that perspective of having to be on the other side of the counter. So when I switched to the public sector, I worked for a few municipalities in California, both, large communities with a lot of development opportunity and small communities that were mostly built out. I've done current planning for residential, commercial, and industrial projects, which is like development, site review, like variances and conditional use permits. And then I also done long range planning, some environmental justice and hazard mitigation. There's a lot of laws around those two topics in California, so a lot of it is just coming into compliance with state law. And then almost 2 years ago, I moved to Chicago, and I started working for the zoning team at House of Levine. Zoning is not most people's favorite topic, but I do love it. I'm a nerd for zoning. It's really about making the policy that you establish in your comprehensive or master plan and making it enforceable. So that kind of makes me feel like we play a part in development in a bigger way. And it's fun, like the problem solving aspect of it. There's problems in each community and they may be similar, like the issues that they're facing, like housing, managing that growth, protecting neighborhood character. But the way that we solve them for each community is really unique. And like that's the part that I really like, just the puzzling. But yeah, at House of Living, we work in all different areas across the country, like the Midwest region, some states down south, and I even get to work on projects like near my hometown in California. So that's really special to me that I get to do that even from Chicago. So that's my piece, and I'll go ahead and pass it to Sarahi.
Cool. Thank you, Nicole. I didn't know that you just recently moved to Chicago 2 years ago. So yeah, really new, but you know, it's a great place to be in. So hopefully it's not too cold. So yeah, a little bit about me. My name is Sarahi. I currently work with the Village of Carroll Streams Community Development Department. And I'm an assistant planner here. And I've been in this role for about a year and a half now, and this is my first full-time position post-grad. I graduated from U of I with a degree in environmental sustainability in May 2024. But I minored in planning. And just like Nicole said, I honestly didn't even know, planning was a profession until like I would say 4 years ago when I stumbled upon a class in my undergrad where I had to, create a research paper about whatever topic I wanted to do. And being at U of I was my very first time being in a walkable community, and I thought it was so beautiful, and it genuinely increased the quality of my life. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna write about this. And that's how I found the planning profession. And I was like, wait, people can do this as a profession, like that's the coolest job ever. So I pretty much went with it. And but as an environmental sustainability major, I, knew I wanted to do planning, but I was actually a transfer student, and my main goal was just to graduate on time. So I would have liked to change my major to planning, but definitely having a different degree, makes I would say my depth of knowledge a bit stronger, just because you do come in with a different perspective. But with my environmental sustainability degree, I didn't think that I was 100% qualified for any sort of planning position initially, whether, that was true or not. So I felt like I took whatever internship that I could, based on my skills that I had at the time, which is why I had an internship with GIS, with the city of Naperville. I interned for their water utility department, and it was a lot of surveying, a lot of geo-referencing, which is really cool. And Naperville actually has an in-house GIS system, because they're such a large municipality, which is really cool to work with it, with the data hands-on. So I absolutely love that internship. And then I was an engineering intern for the Village of Huntley. And a lot of that was honestly not planning related at all. I just kind of took with it because, um, you know, I thought that it could be planning adjacent and maybe an opportunity can come out of that. It was a lot of just inspecting stormwater outlets and measuring I would say crack sealing. So that was pretty much my whole summer, but they knew I had a passion for planning. So I had the opportunity to work with their planning department, and that just kind of opened doors for me completely, just to get that on my resume. And I just like to extensively, go through my pathway to planning, because sometimes it's not always linear, and you sometimes just have to take opportunities while they present themselves, and that's, kind of what I did. And honestly, just even if you don't feel 100%, qualified for something, it doesn't ever hurt to actually apply. It's something that I honestly definitely regret not doing, and it never hurts just putting an application out there, even if you don't, um, you know, think that you're completely qualified for it. I would say, believe in yourself, because that's honestly, most of it. So, that's my little spiel. I can go on a bit more for a tangent, but I can pass it on to Caitlin.
Hi, I'm Caitlyn. It's kind of actually wonderful going third in this group because so many things that have been said absolutely apply in my case too. People falling into planning also. It's very relatable to be like, I don't know if I'm qualified for this, then finding out it's probably okay, or maybe wondering if it would have been okay. So I'm a career switcher. So when I went to college, I was a broadcast journalism major, as Kevin mentioned, and I was really committed to that, for the same reasons, honestly, that I'm kind of committed to planning. I'm kind of a shiny objects person, so a lot of different things can interest me at any given time, and I can go really deep in those things. And I like careers that allow that kind of follow your curiosity thing where you're touching a lot of different things on a day-to-day basis. I worked in journalism first at C-SPAN, which gave me a lot of insight into our federal government, for better or for worse. And then at that Kaiser Health News job where it was health policy journalism. So again, a lot of insight into kind of how our government works on a policy place, and not directly planning related, but of course, things like health obviously are very touched by what our communities are like and where we get to live and what our housing is like and our transportation is like. Um, I kind of always knew that I really loved school. And so I remember even early career journalism thinking, oh, maybe I'd want to go back for a master's someday. But I was also very aware that I shouldn't just do that for funsies, that I should have a career reason for doing it, because it's expensive and time consuming, and it's a life break, especially if you've worked for a while and you're taking that time off to go to school. So I kind of was mulling for a while, what might help me either in journalism or might there be another path. When I was a journalist, it was very much a case, especially in my KHN job, of like a job that I really loved, but starting to kind of have a growing unease with the profession that I was in for a variety of reasons. Primary of that was honestly that it felt a little bit like I didn't like that we were providing information to people, but it was a little bit removed. So, you know, a, I wanted something that felt a little bit more hands-on, where instead of saying, hey, everyone in the world, this is how things are and what you need to know, to say, well, here are some maybe ideas for making it better. And as a journalist, you kind of don't really get to do this is how we might improve things to a really kind of active degree. So I decided to blow up my life. I was living in the DC area, decided to go to grad school at University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, packed up a moving truck, obviously got in first and all that, packed up a moving truck, put all my possessions in it, drove across the country. The entire time felt like, what the heck am I doing? This is terrifying. Moving from having an income to being a student. all of that. I was kind of terrified because I was like, well, I'm coming into this like planning program, but I haven't done anything that's even really touches planning all that much. And so I had this vision of myself as coming into this classroom being the stupidest person in the room, or like the least informed person in the room, I guess I should say. And like the good news was it didn't feel like that at all when I started doing the work. I would say for anyone who's considering maybe a career switch or maybe even doing an element of planning you haven't done before, like obviously you bring all the things that you did before and that you knew before with you, and those can be helpful in ways maybe you didn't anticipate. Like I'm pretty comfortable writing and researching and doing that kind of thing because of my journalism time. So that's been really helpful. Loved my time in Champaign. Was class of 2021, so you all can do the math on what that meant for my grad school time as far as like historic events. So that was kind of a bummer. When I was in grad school, the summer before my second year, started a remote job with AARP, which I'm sure you all know is the organization that advocates for older adults. They have a livable communities team, which is planning related. So they look a lot at kind of providing technical assistance to communities for housing, parks, transportation, a variety of things. Did a lot of their I was their data person. So I was looking at, how are communities using what we provide to them? Is it working? What kind of outcomes are coming from the things that we're trying to help with in those communities, which was great. Um, but it was where I said the journalism job was kind of the right job in the wrong field. This kind of felt like the wrong job in the right field where I felt like I was inching closer. And I really wanted to kind of try my hand at actually being, I don't want to say a real planner because I think people who do planning adjacent things or don't have planner in their title are still planners. Like it's a varied career, but I wanted to kind of have that municipal experience on the ground. So I applied for this job at Roselle and was really fortunate to get it. And I guess kind of the theme is for me that I like to tell myself is like time goes really fast, but there's a lot of it. So I feel like it's been kind of a long journey to get here. And in some ways, it's a little bit weird maybe being a little bit older and more of a beginning role, but like it's good, it's all part of the path, and I'm still learning every day, and I'm still, I still feel like kind of a newbie at my job. It's been almost a year, but that's actually kind of a good thing because it means there's a lot more for me to get my hands around, and I don't like being bored. So yeah, that's my story.
Thank you very much to all of our panelists for sharing their stories and backgrounds. All of them were really interesting. I think I learned something about everyone, and I've known a couple of you for a little bit now. So we're going to move into our question and answer session of the webinar. Please feel free to put any questions in the chat or send them to me privately. I'm just kind of gonna act as the moderator, and if I see a question pop up, I'll address it. I did come with some questions prepared just so we can get the juices flowing. But in the pre, discussion poll, everyone shared that the career they were most interested about was learning about public sector planning, and all three of you have public sector experience. Would it be possible for each one of you to share just like your most memorable public sector experience, something that stayed with you, something that you've learned? I'll just kind of open up to whoever wants to go first.
I can go first. I loved my public sector experience. I think I don't know if it's the most memorable, but the most valuable memory I have is at the front counter. I think every like new planner should work at the front counter, answering those like day-to-day zoning questions, and just having to really understand why, like land use policy or standards are in place, and then having to explain that because so much of planning is explaining like larger ideas in a way that's understandable to the general public.
Yeah, I would have to say around the same thing. I think just the most memorable thing I would say, like in my position right now as a planner, is yeah, being able to really explain like what we do. And it's once you have thoroughly explained, what you do and how you help out the community, I feel like a lot of people are really shocked in a good way of saying like, oh wow, like you guys actually like do so much and everything. And I think what's really cool about planning is that you see your work come into fruition, especially if you are in a government position. Even if you initially don't see your project come to life immediately, because things take time, you have to fully get all the permits in order for the work to actually be done. But seeing even just the smallest change, like for example, if a lot of Carol Stream is industrial. So a lot of my work that I do is with our industrial park, and a lot of special uses for outdoor storage areas. But even it's kind of silly, even saying, a new landscaped area because of this special use permit for outdoor storage in order to better store the area. Thinking like, wow, like these trees are planted like because of my project. Like that's so cool. You get a new little green area. I would say that's my favorite part of the job, and I would say my most memorable as well. Little things like that.
Yeah, I don't want it to sound like I'm copying people's answers, but I mean, I would agree with that. Coming from where I come from, career-wise, I was always kind of a little bit addicted to like the things that upset people in the local environment, if that makes sense. But it's good to like actually get to talk to people about zoning things, even if they're just little zoning things, and kind of help them understand what it is, how it works, and how it affects them, and kind of why it's not just a yes or a no sometimes when they want to do something, why like it's actually important. And also just I agree with that kind of like you go around town and you see like, oh, like that's because of something I did, like, maybe a special use for a business or something. And you're like, now that business is open. That's really cool. I still feel like I'm really at the beginning though. So it's like, oh, I have memories to be made. So looking forward to more of that.
I think one of my favorite things is just the sheer amount of Parks and Rec style questions I get on a daily basis. I once had a very lengthy conversation about zoning for a ferret shelter, which I really never thought I would ever encounter. So just gonna hop in there with that one because I cannot not share that. We've got some good questions rolling in. Thank you very much, everyone. So please keep those coming. First one is just a general, what inspired you to join into this field? Nicole touched upon how she kind of feels everyone falls into planning. I subscribe to that belief as well. So just if you guys could elaborate a little bit more on, what got you going.
Yeah, I would say, like I said before, I really like how, as planners, you get to get in touch with a little bit of everything. Yeah, and I feel like it's one of those jobs that you truly get to see, your work come into fruition. And plus, I think, um, there, and as a planner, you don't ever have the same day, which is really, really cool. It's never, something that you do that is pretty like monotonous. There's always new problems to solve. There's always, new development coming in, which makes things really, really cool. It's always like the same basis of what you do, but it's, every single project's a little bit differently, and you look at it from a different perspective and see, what codes apply to this new development. How can we solve this problem with ingress and egress to this new site? Because, there might be traffic problems. Currently, one of the projects I'm working on is Seven Brew. And as we know, they generate a lot of traffic. And so I've been looking, how to, mitigate traffic onto different roads, and you kind of do a lot of outreach to other municipalities as well, just getting their input, on projects that you like. And with that, I really love how planners are um, really communicative with each other. And I think with the career, it's everyone is honestly willing to help each other out, which I really love. So um, yeah, I would say that.
I think like part of the reason planning's so easy to kind of fall into is, we're all in places. So I know for me it was like just walking down the street and being like, I wonder why that's like that. I wonder why that's there. Like I wonder why how that is there and isn't working well, or how that's there and is really working well. And so I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's just kind of one of those professions where even if you don't even know it exists, because like I definitely didn't know it exists until I was well into adulthood, you know what it's doing to you. So I feel like that's a little bit of a tangent, but I feel like it kind of to me is like anyone has the potential to kind of catch the bug, because we're all kind of walking around the world, living in communities, being in spaces, like visiting places. And I mean, I just kind of love that there's that touch point for everyone, even if people aren't in the planning profession or don't have any attention. Like there's always that shared kind of place experience. And so, I mean, I don't know, that's kind of how I fell into it as I was looking around the world and being like, everything comes back to like where I am. I don't know if that makes sense, but
All right. Uh, we've got a lot of good questions coming out of the chat. So here's another one. How do you switch from private to public as someone earlier in their career? And then an additional question, what skills do you focus on, especially coming from a non-planning background? I think everyone should be able to answer that because all of us started with a non-planning degree.
yeah, for me, it was just taking some time to really think about those skills that I had, like I said, that I carried forward from something else and being like, okay, what can I highlight that I know I'm good at because I did before? So for me, from journalism, it was, communication and writing and visual communication, but also kind of dealing in a high pressure environment, which seems like kind of an intangible, but I feel like, I mean, it's going to take a little bit. I know from having been in a newsroom, like it's going to take a little bit to ruffle me. And so like making sure that like I keep that in mind. I don't know. It's hard because it's kind of like I have a little bit of that, um a little bit of that imposter syndrome someday where I'm like, do I even have any skills? But just keeping in mind, I think what I said before is that, the intangible skills matter, but also all of the little things, learning how to do things every day. I mean, I wish I had better math skills like Nicole does. That might help sometimes. Um, Switching from, because I feel like I kind of went from like nonprofit to public too, is just trying to make those little connections. When I was at ARP, I was dealing with planning things. So kind of emphasizing like, oh, hey, I do know about those things. I just want to apply them in a different way. And I think as you're looking for jobs, just think of how, don't think of it as 100% blank slate, fresh start. Thinking of it kind of as a continuance of the things you already know and know how to do, and making sure like you kind of know how to highlight that you're not starting from nothing, even if you're kind of starting as a new person in a new role. Because everything's going to be new at some point. Like, I don't know in this job if there's ever going to be, a span where I don't potentially see something I haven't seen before, right? So,
I'll jump in a little. So I was in the private sector, I guess at the like small entitlement firm, and when I applied for to be a planning assistant, I definitely did not know anything about planning. Like probably more than the average person, but like I went into that interview thinking that I knew things, and once I started the job, I just realized how much I didn't know, which was great because it was an opportunity to learn. But I think the skills that were most valuable are like those transferable skills, like being able to write, speak to different audiences, and really just to do research. I think that's like a big part of this job is just knowing where resources are and how to like solve problems.
Yeah, I completely agree, especially being in the public sector. Um, I would say, well, my whole career and my professional background has all been in the public sector, so I can't really know on uh the the switch. But I would say communication skills is really, really important, especially kind of like Nicole touched upon a bit earlier. You have to, really learn how to communicate effectively and break down, some zoning applications to people who might not even know what zoning is. Or being able to communicate that through writing, through email. Honestly, I definitely think communication skills and writing skills are extremely important and things that you use every single day when it comes to, writing emails to a prospective, tenant who doesn't understand, or needs a bit of a breakdown of what is required for, for zoning approval, things like that. So, even if you don't have, a formal planning background, having those, soft skills and communication skills really, really help. And I would say if you come from some sort of, GIS background, GIS really is used a lot, in municipal planning. Um, so I would say those are the skills to kind of focus on.
All right. And then, Sarah, he a question for you specifically. How often do you think your environmental science degree plays into your job?
I wish it played a little bit more into my job. I think just because of um, the nature of where I am, there isn't too much to do, but um there's definitely, the room for it. I haven't necessarily explored that since I've been here for a year and a half now. So I would say I'm focusing on the main aspects of my job, but I would definitely, love the opportunity to delve a bit more into my career and apply that to Carol Stream. But hopefully one day I'll get to apply that.
Another question for the panel at large. What resources do you know of, recommend to students to get acquainted with things like zoning codes or zoning law?
I love a zoning question. Um, sorry, I get excited because I feel like people don't want to talk about zoning, so I'm honored. Thank you, Matthew, for asking this question. Um, this is going to be a silly answer, but I would recommend just reading a zoning code. Um, it would probably be best to read it for either the city that you live in or an area that you're more familiar with. So you can just see the different districts, how that's laid out, what kind of things are included in a zoning code. Maybe using like AI as a resource to like ask general questions like what are districts, what are overlays. Um, and then I always recommend to all planners on both sides to go to a public hearing. um, I think you're really seeing what kind of projects are brought to public hearings. You see how the public, the elected and appointed officials, consultants, if there are any, and city staff all interact with each other in a setting like that. Um, yeah, so I think that's just a good opportunity to learn about the actual content, but also like how the profession works.
Yeah, I think you'll always get an entertaining experience out of going to a public hearing. I got mine tonight. They're never the same. And it's a really good way to see how zoning can affect your daily life.
Definitely. And I definitely recommend for the agenda, for any sort of agenda for the plan commission meeting, I would honestly go through the agenda packet and see, the staff report and all the material that goes into a plan commission case. And in there also, a lot of times it references the specific codes that staff is using to have an analysis on whatever case is presented to the plan commission agenda. So really looking at the staff report, looks into our eyes and how we're applying the code to this real world scenario. So I would also, for advice, learn, just read a lot of staff reports, honestly, if you can, because that is a really crucial, part of our jobs. And I definitely struggled with it a lot. Honestly, I, struggle with writing. So just getting yourself familiar with that definitely helps.
And I would just add maybe read comprehensive plans, because it's not the zoning, but it's what the zoning hails back to and is based on. So if you can kind of put those two documents side by side, and then maybe even, if you have a certain place in mind, especially that you want to learn more about why they do what they do, it's kind of like comprehensive plan, zoning code, and then being just outside in the place, because then you can kind of see how it's manifesting, which I feel like that's a little bit of a science experiment, but especially if you're, curious about how it applies in a certain part of town or something, I feel like it's good detective work to kind of put those three pieces together.
Favorite meme is like the Barbenheimer, and it's like Barbie is like comprehensive and master planning, like all the goals and the aspirations of a community, and then Oppenheimer is like the law. It's like very technical, detailed. But yeah, Caitlin's right. Like it's implementing all of those goals and like putting them into like rules that development has to follow. Another resource I would say is just YouTube, like general like looking up different best practices or different like planning theories. I really liked City Beautiful. Um, they kind of make those like big picture things and like focus on one community and like talk about the history. And I use that for my like AICP testing too. So I really like that.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of an interesting niche, but I know my algorithm shows me urban planning stuff too. So I know there's one influencer on Instagram, I think their name is like Signed by Brit, and they do a lot of day in my life of urban planning stuff. And while she's a transportation planner, so it's a little different. It's a really unique way to get a, perspective on what things are. Another question we've received, what's your biggest challenge for those of you while searching for a job out of state? Uh, what was your thought process? How did you network if you weren't there physically? A little detail on that. As I work in the town one over from where I grew up, I don't think I'm suited to answer this question.
I was really nervous when I moved from California to Illinois, and just having that like knowledge on state laws, um, which now I work in a bunch of states and manage all of the different state laws for all of those states. Um, but I did a lot of research, like just looking at, again, those public hearing agendas that were in different states to get familiar with like common problems, or not common problems, but common topics like ADUs, home occupations, those that are handled differently in different states. Um, I reached out to like different firms and added people on LinkedIn and just messaged them like, where do you work? Do you like it there? What groups are you in? Um, just to get a better idea of how like APA is different here. And APA is a great resource. There's always lots of like those smaller groups or the sectors. And I think I spent a lot of time on APA Illinois' website, just like going through everything.
And I only had a snarky answer, unfortunately, which was if you aren't planning on being a planner where you live, because I was in the DC area, it really helps go to grad school and stay where you plan to plan. So, but obviously, like if you've already done that, that's not super helpful.
I do think there is a nugget of truth there. Like, if you're interested in a place and they've got a planning program and you're interested in grad school, that would be a really unique place to learn. So I also went to grad school down in Champaign, and because of its proximity to St. Louis and Indianapolis and Chicago, you're learning about three different, places you could work through your program of study. All right. Another question. Any specific softwares or things you would say is important to know just in your career?
This might be an unpopular opinion, but as somebody who was really into learning like software and hard skills in grad school, also in my previous career in journalism, and the same thing, is like it's really good to know, but don't let it be the be all end all of you. Like you can get really deep into GIS, and that might be even really useful sometimes, but you also have to think of if you get really deep into learning GIS. Do you really want to be a GIS specialist? Like, is that you do? I kind of think if you focus too much on that, risk kind of pigeonholing yourself. And I would say, if you're going to get those hard skills, definitely get them, but don't get so focused on them that they become something that's holding you back from kind of the bigger picture. I feel like that's a little wishy-washy, kind of esoteric, but I mean, I feel like looking back at what I did in school, I did a lot of like data classes and I learned R and I don't really regret any of it, but I'm also kind of like, what if I'd taken that like food systems class? What if I'd taken the real estate class that I passed over to take the class where I learned R? And that doesn't mean it'll never be useful for me, but it's also kind of like there's multiple ways to have knowledge. So that's not a specific what software should you learn question, but I would say like make sure you're following kind of your interest and what you want to do too in the bigger picture of that.
I think always a good skill to have is being able to speak another language. I majored in Spanish in undergrad, and I worked right out of grad school in a majority Hispanic, majority Spanish speaking municipality in Chicagoland. So I was able to put that to use weekly, which, is always beneficial when your local government, you're able to communicate with them, but also allowed me to keep up with it. So I always advocate for trying to learn a language.
No, I completely agree. Carol Stream does have a big Hispanic community here as well. And I am a native Spanish speaker. Both of my parents are actually immigrants from Mexico. And yes, I have honestly used my Spanish a lot more than I think than I think I would have, starting this position. And it's a lot of people, asking questions over the counter that need help translating. And I honestly think having another language skill is a lot more, I would say, valuable than just, learning the absolute like hard skill, if that is something, up your sleeve. It doesn't even have to be that you have to be a completely, native fluent speaker, just even knowing a couple other things or a couple phrases or words in general really, really helps out if you, you know, um, encounter that in your job.
I think we've got time for one last question. So thank you everyone to who have submitted it. Um, but Maya wants to know, were there any technical skills you weren't exposed to during your education that you've had to use in your career? How did you build those? Were you just learning on the job? If you could speak a little bit to that.
I think it's hard because none of us have planning. Well, I guess Caitlyn and well, yeah, you both have your master's in planning. Sorry. But like in my bachelor's, I didn't have a planning degree, so I didn't learn anything with my education other than like transferable skills. Um, so I learned a lot on the job. And when I did get my AICP later on, I learned a lot of more like theory and like best practices. I would say even if you're not taking your AICP yet, those resources are a great opportunity to learn about different planning topics.
I'll say a skill that I feel like I've really had to build over the last few months is just um, this is gonna like people who are upset or really don't like that you're telling them no or really want a thing and are kind of beyond the point of really having a dialogue, like dealing with that kind of conflict situation. I mean, you know, maybe this is kind of a municipal planning forward answer, but like I hadn't had a lot of jobs where people would call me and get really angry before, and that it doesn't happen every day, but it's gonna happen. So, it's one thing to kind of intellectually know what you should do in those situations, but it's really kind of important to have like what you all were talking about, the at the window experience. I don't know really how you prepare for that. It just except just like kind of know it's coming and don't take it personally. But I mean, I feel like how do you learn that? How do you learn that in school, really? I'm sure there are ways. Maybe if I hadn't gone to my grad program in the middle of a pandemic, would have had a little bit more of it too. But
Yeah, you would be honestly really surprised how valuable your soft skills are in this profession, especially at the window. Like honestly, I feel like I've worked various retail jobs in high school, and that has helped tremendously more than any of my technical coursework in school. Just being able to know how to navigate people and definitely de-escalate situations helps so much. I feel like any better than any sort of or at least in my position right now, any sort of technical skills. Of course, they're still extremely important, but I'd still like to highlight that.
Well, I want to thank all of our panelists for their time and answers today. I think, it was very educational, helpful experience. And thank you to everyone who decided to attend today. As we grow our professional development work and we try and provide more opportunities, we're always grateful to see people come out and to see the effort we try to put out. So I threw this in the chat, but if you have any questions or any, curious about opportunities to get involved, our upcoming events, please email epp@ilapa.org. I will do my best to forward the questions along to our panelists or to provide any information that you ask about. So once again, just thank you very much for your time today.